It's the dead of winter, January. The coldest, darkest week of the year, when no one fights, when armies sleep and kings feel safe, which is exactly why they're coming. In a hall at Chippenham, the King of Wessex is asleep. His guards are few. His army is scattered across the countryside, sent home for the winter like every year. He has no idea that out in the freezing dark, an enemy is moving toward him in silence. No torches, no noise, just hundreds of hardened Viking warriors closing in on the last English king still standing. And when they hit fast. The hall erupts, steel and screaming in the dark. Alfred's men die where they stand or run for their lives. And the king, the last king of the last free English kingdom, is dragged from sleep into a nightmare, bundled out into the night by a handful of survivors with the enemy already in the buildings behind him. No army, no plan, just a horse, a few loyal men, and the black, frozen countryside. This is the night England died, or very nearly. Because by this point in the story, England as an idea is hanging by a single thread, and that thread is one terrified man on a horse, galloping into the dark with Vikings at his back. By the end of this video, you'll know how that man, hunted, beaten, hiding in a swamp like a criminal, clawed his nation back from the edge of total extinction and set in motion the birth of England itself. It is one of the greatest comebacks in history, and almost nobody outside Britain has even heard it. If you love British history with the tension left in, told straight, no fairy tales, hit subscribe. It's free and it keeps this channel going. Right, let me show you how it got this bad. Rewind about 80 years to a summer morning in 793 on a little island called Lindisfarne off the northeast coast. A monastery, monks' treasure, no walls, no soldiers, because who attacks a house of God? The Vikings, it turns out. They come off the sea with no warning and butcher the place, kill the monks, strip the altar, and the shock of it tears across Europe. One scholar wrote that never before had such terror been seen in Britain, that the heathens had trampled the bodies of the saints in the church like dung in the street. That's the opening shot. And for about 70 years, that's the pattern. Raids. They come in summer, hit the coast, grab everything, and are gone before anyone can fight back. Brutal, but you survive it. You bury your dead and you rebuild. Then comes 865, and the rules change overnight. At this time they don't come to raid, they come to take the whole country. An army lands, the English call it the Great Heathen Army, and the name isn't an exaggeration to them, it's a description of pure dread, because this force does what no Viking force has done before. It doesn't leave, it digs in for the winter. It seizes horses and turns into a fast strike force that can be anywhere. And it sets out, methodically, to do the unthinkable, destroy the kingdoms of England one by one. How many of them were there? Truth is, nobody knows, and anyone who throws you a hard number is guessing. Maybe 1,000. Maybe a few thousand. And here's why even that was enough to bring a country to its knees. The English had no real army. They had farmers called up when needed, sent home at harvest. They didn't fight in winter, so a professional year-round war machine of even a couple of thousand men was a weapon they had no answer to at all, and it carved them apart. Northumbria first, the mighty kingdom of the north. The Vikings take the city of York. The Northumbrians, who'd been too busy fighting each other to notice the threat, finally unite, throw everything at retaking the city, and are slaughtered in the streets. Both their kings dead in a single day. Northumbria gone. East Anglia next. It's King Edmund stands and fights. He loses, he dies. Gone. There's a grisly old legend of him tied to a tree and shot full of arrows, but I'll be straight with you. That comes from a writer more than a century later, so take it as a story, not a fact. The fact is simpler and just as final. The king is dead and the kingdom has fallen. Then Mercia, the great kingdom of the Midlands, its king doesn't even die fighting. He's simply driven out, running all the way to Rome, where he dies in exile. The Vikings prop up a puppet on his throne and move on. Stop and count. 4 kingdoms, 3 destroyed in under a decade, kings killed, exiled, erased, and only one left, Wessex, the south, the last one standing. And everything, the language, the country, the whole future, now rests on it. Which brings us back to that man on the horse in the freezing dark. Alfred. Now Alfred was never even meant to be king. He was a younger brother. But his brothers died, and the crown landed on him in 871 in the middle of the catastrophe when he was barely 21 years old. And he'd already been bloodied against the Vikings. He'd even beaten them once in a hard fight at a place called Ashdown, so he knew they could bleed. But he also knew Wessex couldn't beat them outright, not yet. So he did the only thing that kept his kingdom breathing. He paid them. Silver for time, again and again, buying survival one bribe at a time, praying for a chance to turn it around. And then came Chippenham. The midwinter ambush, the night we started with. The night Guthrum, the Viking leader, broke every rule of war, struck in the dead of winter, and shattered the last English kingdom in a single blow. So now you know how the king ended up where he ended up, in a swamp. Because that's where Alfred ran, into the wild flooded marshes of Somerset, the one place all those Viking horsemen couldn't easily follow. And there, at a desolate spot called Athelney, the last king of the last English kingdom became a fugitive. No court, no throne, no army worth the name. Just a man hiding in the reeds and the mud, launching little hit-and-run raids like an outlaw, while out beyond the marsh, his country was being divided up by the men who'd beaten him. This is rock bottom. This is the moment England as a real thing came within a breath of simply ceasing to be. You might have heard the story of Alfred and the burnt cakes hiding in a peasant's hut. So lost in despair, he lets the woman's cake scorch on the fire and gets a scolding for it. Lovely tale, almost certainly invented. His own chroniclers never mention it. It surfaces much later. But it captures the truth of the moment. A king brought so low he's cowering in a stranger's kitchen, and the survival of a nation hanging on, whether he can somehow rise from it. And then he does the thing that makes him a legend. From that swamp, in secret, Alfred sends out the call. Quiet messengers, slipping across the country, to the men of the south, meet me. And in May, he rides out from the marsh to a place called Egbertstone, not knowing if anyone will come. They come. The men of Somerset, of Wiltshire, of Hampshire, stream in to meet him. And the old chronicle says that when they saw him, when they saw their king alive, the one they'd thought was finished, they rejoiced. Months ago he was a fugitive in the mud. Now, suddenly he has an army at his back again, and he turns it straight at the enemy. He marches them to a place called Edington, and there the last English king faces the army that has eaten every other kingdom in England. His men lock their shields edge to edge into the wall of wood and iron that is the heart of how the English fight, and they smash into the Viking line. And it is long, and it is savage, hour after grinding hour, but the wall holds, and it is the Vikings who break. Alfred doesn't let them slip away. He chases them all the way back to their stronghold and surrounds it, and after 2 weeks with no food, Guthrum, the man who'd hunted him into a swamp, surrenders. And here Alfred does the cleverest thing of all. He doesn't massacre them, he makes a deal. Guthrum will leave Wessex for good, and astonishingly, he agrees to be baptized a Christian. And Alfred, whose kingdom this man nearly wiped out weeks before, stands as his godfather. The hunter becomes the godson. Wessex lives. England barely still exists. But Alfred isn't done. And this is why he is the only king in all of English history we call the Great. He knows they'll be back. So he rebuilds his kingdom into something that can survive the next blow. He throws up a network of fortified towns across the land, close enough that no raider can run wild between them, and many of those strong points are towns that still stand in England today. He splits his army in two so half can fight while half farms, so he's never caught asleep again. He builds bigger ships to meet them at sea. He even drags learning back from the dead. He doesn't just survive, he builds a fortress nation. And here's the final twist, the answer to everything. Alfred saved the idea of England, but he didn't get to finish it. His children did. His son Edward and his ferocious daughter Ethelfled, who led armies in the field herself, went on the offensive and started taking the land back town by town. And his grandson Aethelstan finished the job. He seized the great Viking city of York. He pulled the whole of England under a single crown for the first time in history. And at a colossal, bloody battle called Brunanburh in 937, he crushed an alliance of every enemy ranged against him and made it stick. For the first time, there was one king of all England. There was an England, and every bit of it traces back to one beaten man alone in a freezing swamp who refused to accept his country was dead. So that's the answer to the riddle we opened with that night of fire and panic at Chippenham. How does a nation that's already as good as destroyed claw its way back from the grave? It does it because at the very last second, with 3 kingdoms gone and his own in ruins, one king came out of the marsh, called a broken people to him, and won the single battle he could not afford to lose. England came within one winter of never existing. The reason it does is a man called Alfred. Quick honest note before you go, because this channel doesn't dress things up. Most of this comes down to us through the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and a biography written by a churchman in Alfred's own service, and both wrote for his side, so they make Wessex the hero. The army sizes, the casualty counts, even the exact fields where some of these battles were fought are uncertain or argued over, and a few of the favourite tales, the burning cakes, the goriest saga details, are legend, not record, and I flagged them as we went, but the bones of it are solid. England really was cut down to one kingdom. That kingdom really was overrun. A king really did come back from a swamp to save it. And his bloodline really did forge the England we know. So here's my question, drop it in the comments. Does Alfred deserve to be the only English king ever called the Great, or would you crown someone else? I read every reply. And if you want the story of the battle that finally hammered England into one nation, Brunanburh, it's waiting for you right on screen. I'll see you in it.